Okay. Sorry, there's a real bright light right there. Sorry. Hopefully, I'm gonna get some kind of studio or something like this. I had better quality video. It's my fault. So I want to talk about. First of all, I've lived a very privileged life. Um, my dad was a psychiatrist. Mother was stay-at-home mom, but also a worked in real estate. She didn't really make them that much money, but they're both college educated. And they sent me and my brother to uh, what's called the Episcopal Academy. The Episcopal Academy is one of the most elite schools in the United States, one of the most elite prep schools in the United States, founded in 1785, same year, I think 1785, same year as the Constitution. Wait a minute, that's 1787. I'm sorry. Well, look, it's old school. All right. I think it was all white and all male up until the 60s, the 1960s, 1970s. I think that's pretty much when everything changed, civil rights movement, and started letting black students, non-white students, into these elite institutions and colleges and universities, etc. In larger numbers, because obviously they had some. I don't know if Episcopal had though before. They also started letting girls into Episcopal, and I did very well. It was the only school I'd ever known. A little bit of racism. My brother Ben was treated horribly at Episcopal, because anyone who seemed to have in any way any kind of um, imperfections, or you know what, it was like a very competitive, rigorous environment, and anyone who wasn't perceived as not terribly bright, or I don't want to say bright, but um lacking in social skills, or some kind of deficit or something like that. They were bullied, and sometimes by the staff and the students. This is a very elite, rich. I mean, kids that have household names and so forth and so on. John Yoo was there, who did the torture memo for Bush. You had Dr. J's kids, you name it. Grace Kelly's nephews, DuPont children, Brian lacrosse sticks, and soccer ball, Empire, Air, and so many, so many. Anyway, I was getting bullied by a guy who's now deceased. That's a long story. And he so I and then my brother was also thrown out of the school. He was thrown out of the school at that point. So I didn't really want to continue. Um and it was weird because it's the only school I ever went to. So I think there were 96 kids in class. I made the honor roll. I was a good student, and I wasn't a really particularly good athlete, but I did okay in football. I was on, I think, the 80-pound football team in 8th grade, or 105 or something like that. And I I I got in a lot. We had a very small team, so I did play a lot. I wasn't particularly good at basketball. I didn't do terribly well at soccer. But one of the great things about the Episcopal Academy and a lot of these private schools is they make you play 3 sports a year, which I think that would be great for any school. I think they should compel you to get involved in music and something, art, uh, and sports, because sport I think are very therapeutic. They're good for you. Okay, so I left Episcopal and I went to Central High School, Philadelphia, Noam Chomsky School, Bill Cosby School, uh, uh, and so many other great. Um, well, I don't know if you want to say Bill Cosby's great at this point, but anyway, I think this school was started by Ben Franklin's grandson. Maybe it was the second oldest all male public school in the United States, next to Boys Latin in Boston, which I believe is still all male in public, obviously. But it was a huge culture shock for me. I knew my father went there. Most importantly, I guess that's the main reason they let me in automatically. I automatically started taking almost all 10th grade classes because such Episcopal Academy prepared me very well. I always, for a long time, I wondered where I might have been if I had just stayed at Episcopal. I think I'd be academically, I would have been much better off, probably, um, because first of all, you get a lot more attention at Episcopal Academy than you would, or a private school, than you would at a public school. Like I said, they had like 96 kids at Episcopal, whereas I think we started off with 1,000 in my class at Central. And then it was then like two-thirds of the students got kicked out. I had a horrible experience with the principal, Dr. Pavel. I thought he was honestly a jerk. This other teacher named Mr. Diano was terrible. Every interaction I had with Dr. Pavel was awful, just awful. He one time showed my SAT scores to my girlfriend and suggested, "Oh, you sure you want to go out with this guy?" I mean, what? Which I'm sure is illegal, like showing my personal records to my girlfriend. He's just an awful person. Then he got upset because there was violence at the school parties, and I worked for the school newspaper, and I wrote about it, and he did not like that. He called me into his office and said, like, why would you write this in the paper? You're gonna it's gonna affect potential students we're gonna have. You just, oh my god. Anyway, I did okay the first 2 years. Was on the honor roll, but I started doing worse. I had a horrible experience with Mr. Diano. He's a terrible teacher. Um, he taught what was it? Advanced elementary functions. Where's it? Yeah. Episcopal it was much more structured. Again, you get much more individualized attention. You're paying a lot of money. I don't know what it costs now. It must be like $50,000 a year, something like that. So you get what you pay for. But they started letting girls into Central during my junior year, I think. Or no, my sophomore year. No, my freshman year. They let more and more girls in. Or was I a sophomore? Anyway, I think it was 1983, so I was a freshman. So in that sense, Episcopal and Central were kind of similar because they both of them started letting girls in. When I got to the respective schools. So it was a cultural shock. The good thing about Central, however, was the diversity, the students. That was the good part about Central. Uh, Not only you had black, white, Latino, Asian. Uh, I don't think there were any Latino students at Episcopal when I was there that I knew. There were few black students. There were like 90, 96 kids in the class, and I think there were 9 African American students, few Jewish students, but for the most part, it was, very wealthy WASPs. So that was a very different experience at Central, and very, very extremely wealthy kids at Episcopal. The students at Central were from vastly wide, socioeconomic, uh, status, if that's English. They came from a vast, wide array range of socioeconomic status, which is an education of itself. It's something that was the beneficial part of going to school, and many of them turned out very successful, and a lot of my friends ended up sending their own children to really elite private schools like, was it Exeter or Phillips Exeter or whatever. So, yeah. Um, and, yeah, at, Central, I think, in fact, some of my Mr. Linker was my headmaster at Episcopal. He didn't think I would fare well at Central because, um, you do like, if you're gonna be in a school that's, like, really large, you really have to have you have to be kind of a self-starter. You have to be able to make sure that you're getting the education, and I didn't have that kind of independence. I'd never been to a school that large before, and that where you could just fall through the cracks, very easily. So, yeah, it was difficult. It was very difficult. Um, but it's interesting because you look at one of the things I realized, I think that's where I began to realize that race is not a thing. Like, I didn't know that at the time, but that was beneficial. That, you know what? You date white girls, black girls. I think that was it. You really start to realize, okay, not that different, really, substantively, and hang out with people of different ethnic groups and socioeconomic groups. I also begin to see that richer people are not necessarily smarter than anyone else. Like, people don't get ahead necessarily because 'cause they're the smartest people in the world or the hardest working, you know, but, are probably the biggest contributor to wealth is that you're born wealthy. Um, I think that's Thomas Piketty's, thesis. Um, yeah, so that was really a very rich experience for me, and, I think that's all I can say about it at the moment, but I th th that was a very impactful, time in my life for sure. Thanks.